Welcome to the program. We begin right here in Kenya, where Kenyan officials say there is no credible information of an imminent threat against the country's airports after a leaked memo warned of possible suicide attacks by al-shabab militants. The head of Kenya's Airports Authority, Yatich Kangugo, said at a press conference that the memo contained unverified information which had been released prematurely. The document warned that airports in the capital, Nairobi and Mombasa, were among those being targeted by militants trained inside Somalia.
My attention has been drawn to an internal memo from my office to all airport managers in Kenya, warning them against a possible terrorist attack. We wish to inform the general public that the aviation industry is very sensitive to all security matters. We take proactive action to any intelligence information, however frivolous it may seem, however small it is. We normally take it very seriously. In respect to this information, my office acted on first informant. Unfortunately, the information was released prematurely without awaiting the due verification by threat assessment experts from the National Aviation Security Committee, we normally call it NAVSEC, and other security agencies. We therefore wish to assure our citizens, the traveling public, all airport users, that Kenyan airports and designated airstrips are not under any imminent attack. And I want to repeat that they are not under any imminent attack. I want to report that we have normal operations going on in all our network. So for those of us who would want to have a visit, you can have a look at them. KAA is aware of the prevailing global terrorism threat, which has been issued, among others, al-shabab, who have issued public threats against Kenya. We know that. We have consequently raised our operational threat category to high alert in conjunction with all other national security organs who have increased vigilance to counter any potential attacks. The public is urged to maintain calm, constant vigilance, and inform the law enforcement agencies of any information or any suspicious activities in their normal day-to-day activities. I just want also to add that for this information which was circulated in the social media, we urge the public not to circulate it or with an intent to create a panic, because there shouldn't be any. This information was going through stages of processing, and we are on top of it.
Our in-house security analyst Mwenda Mbijiwe is in the studio. Shall be talking about that among other issues. Now, Islamist militant group al-shabab has said it carried out Sunday's attack in Somalia's southern city of Baidoa that killed at least 30 people. A car bomb exploded outside a restaurant as people were watching the English Premier League match between Manchester United and Arsenal. In a second explosion, a suicide bomber blew himself up at a busy junction. This is the fourth major al-Shabab attack in Somalia since the beginning of the year. It came on the same day as countries which contribute to the African Union force in Somalia pledged to reinforce military operations in Somalia to effectively counter threats from al-Shabab. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud held an emergency cabinet meeting on Sunday evening in response to the Baidoa attack, and Security Minister Abdirizak Mohamed Omar called for extra laws to help the government of Somalia fight the militant group. The attacks injured 60 people who are being treated in various hospitals. Saying in the Horn of Africa, heads of state and government from countries contributing to troops to the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, concluded a one-day summit in Djibouti on Sunday with a pledge to reinforce military operations in Somalia to effectively counter threats from the al-Shabab. The summit urged stakeholders to increase and provide timely, enhanced and better coordinated support to the Somali National Security Forces.
The summit urged the AU Commission and the international community to identify and disable channels utilized to finance al-shabab and other terror groups, as well as curtail the recruitment and training of foreign fighters in Somalia.
Somalia is today close to stand its own feet and become an active member of the world community, a peaceful place where its people can live in a better life.
The decision that was made by the European Union to reduce funding by 20% to the AMISOM force. This was seen as a matter of concern, and that is why it was strongly suggested that the UN should take up the financing of AMISOM.
Capacity building of the Somali National Army and stabilization of newly liberated areas were pinpointed as priority areas requiring immediate attention.
By this summit, we want to reiterate our commitment and engagement and the political will necessary for reinforcement of AMISOM and Somali National Army. We decided to meet together to establish a common political goal for the realization of the mission, but also analyze the challenges that AMISOM faces.
In his remarks, the AU Commissioner for Peace and Security, who co-hosted the summit with President Sheikh Mohammed and Omar Guelleh, expressed confidence that resolutions made at the summit would fast-track critical security operations in Somalia. The summit recommended a review of immediate operational requirements for AMISOM and Somalia National Security Forces to bolster the war against al-shabab.
The summit has been hosted here in Djibouti at a very critical time for the political and security processes in Somalia. The meeting here shows the decisive effort at consolidating the peace in Somalia. Somalia is currently implementing Vision 2016, and we are delighted to see the results of this culminating into the September elections. This process is essential in accelerating key reforms, including public finance management, the security, progress towards the election, and formation of federal states is all very critical.
Presidents from Kenya, Somalia, and Djibouti, Ethiopian Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn, and Uganda, Burundi, and Nigeria defense ministers attended the summit alongside other key stakeholders and Somalia's partners. Najma Ismail, KTN News.
Let's now bring in our in-house security analyst, Mwenda Mbijio, just got into the studio. Pole kwa safari.
Asante.
Welcome to Bottomline East Africa.
Thank you.
We'll talk about a number of issues. We'll start with Djibouti, the heads of states and governments of countries contributing troops to the AMISOM. First of all, how well do you think, or badly, AMISOM has done inside Somalia?
Thank you for having me. Really, truth be said, I mean, AMISOM has done very well. If we were to rate them in the scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the highest, we would give them 3.5. This is because this is a country that was not a country really. Except the borders, there was nothing else running there. Al-Shabab had taken over, and led by the gallant Ugandan soldiers, AMISOM went in there, stuck their feet on the ground, and in spite of the casualties they have paid, I think the greater gain they have achieved is more praiseworthy, and I think we should commend AMISOM and indeed African Union for the work they have done in Somalia. Of course, there's a lot more to be done, but I mean, we've taken the first step in the right direction.
Right. So Sunday's summit promised to reinforce the AMISOM. How would you judge the political will for those countries that are contributing to the AMISOM forces?
The countries that are contributing troops, I don't think they have much political, handle or many political handles to jump over. I think the handles are with the rest of the African Union nations that long time, even before Sunday, 2-3 years ago, promised to send troops to Somalia, and up to now they have never put their troops and money where their mouth was. All that Somalia got from a lot of these African nations was mouth service. And it's time Africa actually realizes that we are a brother's keeper. When there was problem in Kosovo, Europe sat together and European nations divided Kosovo into different parts, and each country was given a different part of Kosovo to deal with, clean it up, demine it, remove all the mine bombs, and bring civility. And today Kosovo is a nation. But Somalia, we only have about 5 or 6 countries sending troops in there: Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, Sierra Leone. We have Djibouti, pardon me, and Ethiopia. A few more from observers from other countries like Nigeria. Really, what happened to Africa?
Right, and there are complaints by still African countries that there should be more funding from the European Union, and they want the United Nations to fund the AMISOM. Is that a contradiction, because you only have very few African countries contributing to those troops, and yet we are looking for outside funding and support?
Well, a little earlier, sorry, a little earlier than where we are today, it would have been hard to get funding from the UN or European Union or anyone else, but not anymore. Since the rise of ISIS, the dynamics of funding and fighting terror have completely changed. When ISIS knocked the gates in Paris, when they knocked the gates in Belgium, when they knocked the gates in Germany, these nations have suddenly realized that indeed the map of extremism could be spreading to Africa, but it's really going to eat its way up back into Europe. And so the best fight to fight is to fight it in the enemy's territory as opposed to fighting it in your territory. And I can assure you right now, even in the work I do, I get a lot of consultancies and questions coming from these nations now, asking where they could put their effort, their money, their help. Actually, one country offered to train us for free if we needed to understand how to help advise and consult on terrorism. So the funding now, the dynamics have completely changed. And so as much as there was no funding, now times have changed. And I think Africa can have a strong case before these donor nations, development partners, and say, look, it's either you give us the money or these people are going to come over there.
Right. So we also had, still yesterday on Sunday, another attack, this time in Baidoa, in the southern part of Somalia. And you say that AMISOM has done pretty well so far. From where you stand, what do they need to change, tactically speaking, in order to be able to be a step closer or ahead of al-Shabab?
You see, Baidoa falls in the same restive region that we've called Sector 3.
Yes.
And you remember earlier on, Baidoa was the capital of TFG, and al-Shabab actually contained TFG within the confines of the city. They couldn't move a step outside. And now Sector 3 was given to Ethiopia to clean up. And right at the border of that Sector 3 and Sector 2 is where El Ade falls, where our soldiers were killed the other night. And what I'm driving to is to say Sector 3 has huge problems because Ethiopia was given this sector to clean. It's actually the largest sector. But al-Shabab, after being hit from sectors 1, 2, 3, sector Kisimayo, sectors 4, ran into the Sector 3 area, which is the Baidoa Gedo area. Right. And so if AMISOM must bring peace to Somalia, win the battle of al-Shabab, then we're going to have to tell Ethiopia on the face that, look, you failed, and we're going to take this job up. We're going to divide it to the African troops in Somalia, or bring in a new nation like South Africa or Morocco or Egypt. Their troops go in there and clean the mess in Sector 3, but Ethiopia has completely failed.
Right. Mwanda, before I let you go, let's talk about what's happening here in Kenya. The Kenya Airports Authority saying it was a security breach that, that memo was leaked about an imminent attack on Kenyan airports. What's your take on that? Is that a goof?
No, I don't think it's a goof. They are admitting that indeed there was such information, yes, as we heard, and he said they did not want to treat it, as trivial or as nothing, but as they communicated internally, the communique found its way out. And today is the social media, just someone takes clip. Of course, I think the issues of confidentiality must be addressed. The security department can find out how that document leaked out. However, the information, for us, whether it's a goof or